What is a sign in adults that they were neglected as a child? Story 1. Still feeling like you're always in trouble even as a grown adult. This is maybe the main reason I never feel like I'm a full adult. I'm 35 and I have to constantly remind myself that I'm not on the verge of being punished for some perceived slight. Literally had to vocalize that I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. There's no bully, finances are okay, there's food in the fridge and freezer, bills are paid. Why the anxiety? I guess chronic anxiety means your subconscious mind is constantly expecting something to go wrong even when everything is fine. Story 2. Being shocked that their existence and actions are perceptible or meaningful to others. For example, they might easily blow off hangouts, not bother responding to texts, and show up late to things before quietly sitting down expecting that nobody really notices their presence or has any care whether or not they're around in the first place, unless it is presumably random or convenient. Usually, it is surprising and hurtful to realize that this has actually made the other people feel bad, but it is done with the genuine belief that literally nobody cares and you have no possible influence on anybody's life or feelings either way. Whoa, this hit home. I'm always shocked when someone notices something different about me, haircut, makeup, etc., or remembers something I did or said. Reading this made me realize my default is still to assume that my presence has no impact on anyone. Like I don't really count as a person the way everyone else does. I've always felt like a background character in my own life, and it's led me to be a really bad friend and person, because it never really occurred to me that other people noticed or cared if I was around or involved. Most of the time, I assumed they would prefer I didn't, so it's like I convinced myself I was doing the nice thing by walling myself off. In the few relationships I do have with people, I'm a total enigma because I don't talk about myself and just focus on being the best supporting role to their best actor. I've been shocked at the number of people from my past who have said I was their best friend back in the day. Story 3. I don't trust promises that people make. I avoid conflict as much as possible and tend to look for an exit if things get loud or if people move fast. I try not to be a burden to anyone, but I'm always checking in with people to make sure someone cares about them. I don't like spending money on myself, and if anyone buys me anything, I feel guilty, or like it might be held over my head. I find more comfort alone or with animals than most people. I'm worried that I'm constantly disappointing people around me or wondering why anyone would want to be my friend or a romantic partner. I'm working on all of it, of course, and keep a normal appearance as much as possible, but my mind never really stops and I just wish I wasn't so sad all of the time. This is by far the comment that gets me the most. If someone's nice or offers you something, the first thing that comes up is suspicion and wondering what the heck they want from you. First, because why would I be worth these things, and second, because some people are out to get you. I end up doing things for people to wipe out the debt I feel like I have. Most times I get a gift. I try to remember the last time I got them anything, how much it cost, if it was actually useful to them. Other times I have the instinct to get things done quickly so no one complains or nitpicks at me. At jobs, I have the constant urge to get customers and coworkers away so I can work in peace, yet all of my experience culminates in me only being hired for customer service type work. People compliment me for being fast, then get put off when I admit that I just don't want to deal with people getting pissy the moment I don't work at light speed. I do too, even after years of working on it. Story 4. They don't ask for help, ever. I don't trust anyone, and I'm not gonna appear weak in front of anyone so that they can use it against me later on. I'll figure it out on my own because no one's ever been there for me. I almost never ask for help. I grew up with a mother who would yell at you if you asked for anything, and an emotionally unavailable father who told us he never wanted kids. One of my core memories is getting my period. I was 12 and knew what it was because my school had talked to the girls. I went to find my mom to tell her. She got irritated and told me tampons were in the cabinet and instructions were on the box. I couldn't get the tampon in. I tried and tried for 20 minutes until I was yelled at to get out of the bathroom. I spent the next 3 years stuffing my underwear with toilet paper until I got a job at Burger King and made enough money to buy pads. I literally walked around for almost half an hour at work, looking for a med kit after badly slicing my finger. Said I didn't need stitches because I didn't want to bother anyone. So I agree with this comment. I'm terrified of asking for help, especially if it was because I hurt myself. I don't want to appear weak or in need of help. Plus, I don't want people upset with me, so that's a double no on asking for help. I don't ask for help either, and it's just because I'm introverted. Story 5. In addition to what has already been said, constantly apologizing for things that need no apologies. When they talk, they might be prone to fast talking because they are not used to someone listening to them or someone not talking over them. This is too real and too painful. It's an inherent habit to speed up when talking to be quiet as soon as possible. But then when people call you out for it, it's mortifying and feels like when you were a kid again. Or just sort of giving up mid-sentence or as soon as they made a mistake. My dad is so self-obsessed that if I wanted to say something as a kid, I usually had to just jump into the conversation sideways, and if I stuttered or something, it was game over, and he took the opportunity to go back to telling the same story we've all heard 45 times in the last week. It's actually an amazing feeling when I say never mind or just let my speech fizzle out, and the other person is like, go on, instead. I do that. I look right at them and say, you were talking about such and such. Please continue. Story 6. Massive black spots in your memory, feeling completely disconnected from your parents, looking back at what you do remember as if it was lived by someone else. Sometimes I look at photos of my childhood and can't reconcile the smiling images of me as a baby, toddler, little, alongside my parents looking so happy, versus the pics as I got older and less cute and less interesting to them. They loved babies. Once I hit first grade and beyond, not as much. That's horrible, and I'm really sorry you went through that. My kids are 2, 7, and 9, and I think the intensity of emotion increases as they get older. As they're able to insult me with quick fervor, they can frustrate me with equal fervor, and they just keep on getting better and better. We're camping this weekend, and this morning my 9-year-old came and did a goofy dance in front of me until we both cracked up and he ended up hugging me with the sweetest smile on his round freckled face. My heart almost shattered with the intensity of my feelings at that moment. So far, my kids have started off great and just gotten better with age, and I think everyone deserves parents that feel this way. Oh, so maybe that's why I don't remember my childhood. Story 7. Fear of abandonment, especially completely unexpected. Believing people will find someone better or they get sick of you. Believing what makes you unique are actually flaws and more reasons to leave. People pleasing, resulting in a lack of healthy boundaries, such as putting others' needs before your own and having a hard time saying no. And then, once you do say no, you wonder if they are mad or going to leave you. Not asking for help or having difficulty delegating. There's being strong and independent, and then there's being stubborn and refusing to rely on anyone else for any sort of help. Currently working through all the above in therapy. Yup, when I was younger, I used to dread meeting people. Even worse, when they thought I was cool. I'd get the cold sweats and would think about how they're going to find out how uncool I am and not want to be around me anymore. Repetitive experiences of being neglected by family and the friends I chose always choosing to spend time with my sister instead. Why am I on this thread? These are things I haven't thought about in a good while. Good lord. Oh boy, I resonate with a lot of this. I always feel like if people get to know me, they will leave. I disengage a lot, and I think it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. Thankfully, I do have some close people in my life who have helped me love parts of myself I spent my life hating, but I still struggle with saying no, to the point it's gotten me into dangerous situations. Working on this in therapy currently. We'll see how things go. Never asking for help is a hard one. I am so uncomfortable saying I need help. Story 8. For me, I literally do not ask for help until the situation is literally basically life or death. Asking help with physical tasks, mental health, advice, you name it. I'm a hyper-independent individual, and being vulnerable and open just isn't in my personality. It took me a long time to realize this personality trait of mine, probably due to neglect. I've always had people tell me they're impressed I can do so many things, DIY, cook, bake, and general problem solving, etc. But it came from having no one to rely on when I did need help. Nobody ever came to assist me, so I learned. That unless it's literally life or death. I am not asking someone to aid me. It's so ingrained in my psyche that it's like muscle memory. I'm not trying to be stubborn, but I never ask anyone for help. I've been to help friends of mine move from their place, paint apartments, help their families with things, and I realize when I'm doing these things that I would never ask anyone to help me with them. It wouldn't even cross my mind to have a friend come join me to paint a room. It would never cross my mind either. Story 9. Hoarding certain things like they never had enough and now cannot be without or afraid someone will take it away. Yeah, and as a side note, this can also be the case for people who were not neglected but lived through poverty. Poverty and neglect here. I never went hungry, but food never felt stable or abundant. I struggle not to hoard food during good sales, and if the pantry feels like it's getting close to bare, it never truly does now. I start to get anxious and panicky and buy a ton of canned and boxed foods. This was my situation. I hoard shelf staples, but much more when I make or buy something garbagey like chips or cake or something. I get very weird about it because I never had those luxuries. I don't want a whole cake, but I often will take it into my room or eat much larger portions than I want to make sure I get enough, because the expectation is that it won't be there tomorrow, so I'd better eat myself sick on it today so I don't even want it later. It's a really bad and self-destructive attitude towards unhealthy food that I have to be really careful to manage. Same. Aldi had a seasonal flavor chip I liked, and I went back and bought several bags multiple times before it was gone. Costco had brownie brittle on mega sale, and I bought 6 huge bags. If I didn't have my partner to reel me in, I would have left with 10 plus. I struggle with overeating too. I didn't get to have it growing up, and what we did have was shared and spread thin. So when I have a thing now that I like, I get really selfish about it and eat way too fast. Getting better about it, but it's just a never-ending fight with myself. I definitely think it's more of a poverty thing, but it makes sense. Story 10. Try to be invisible. When you get attention from someone, you don't feel good because you weren't used to getting attention in your childhood. That's why you don't like to show yourself and try to be as invisible as possible. I feel this. I get suspicious when people start paying attention to me because a part of me is internally just like, what do you want? No one interacts with me because they like me. You must want something out of me. Please tell me so I can fulfill it and go back to the safety of being ignored. For whatever reason, my mom wasn't keen to host birthday parties for my sisters and me and our friends. As a mom now, I think it was likely a combination of financial and cultural differences. My parents immigrated as minors and both grew up needing to make their own way through college, so they were used to carefully budgeting money for essentials and rainy day savings. Anyway, as a child, I really wanted to have a birthday party where I invited friends over, and my mom said no every time. In 4th grade, the teacher gave us some sort of assignment. I don't remember what the assignment actually was, but I wrote about wanting to have a birthday party and submitted it. During a parent-teacher conference where I was present, my teacher told my mom about it, and my mom turned to me and said, "Oh, so you really want a birthday party?" Her tone wasn't mean or anything, but something about her delivery along with her knowledge that she already told me no made me decide right there and then I never wanted my birthday to be acknowledged or mentioned by anyone. At the same time, I continued to feel pressured to want to have a birthday acknowledged. All this media about how birthdays are your special day and all that. I'm in my early 40s now. While I can't remember my feelings from elementary school, I know that from high school onward I really didn't want cake or singing or gifts, but my dad insisted on getting me cake every year to have after family dinner despite me telling him I didn't want any. It all made me so uncomfortable and awkward because I didn't know how to react. I get cagey when people ask me about my birth date and give stupid riddles like, it's the same as X celebrity / well-known person. In recent years, I've tried to be more gracious about it and just say thank you, because usually it's just coworkers or friends offering to buy me drinks or my husband asking if I'd like to eat something special for dinner. I always felt so out of place going to other kids' parties and seeing how their families were. Story 11. Extreme defensiveness. Growing up, you felt like you had to fight to the death for what you knew was right because you were constantly being told that things you saw in front of you or experienced firsthand didn't happen. I hate the question, "What are you doing?" because it makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong and is being told to justify my stupid behavior right now. It triggers the worst fight or flight reaction in me, and I can't stand that I get so pissy about it because it's like never coming from a bad place. It's always genuine curiosity, yet I can't hear it without feeling like I'm being shouted at. I always knew I had to be 100% correct about what I said, or A, no one would listen to me, or B, I wouldn't be believed. If I was wrong, that was an excuse to never listen to another word I said. I had to really work at not saying anything and being comfortable just with possessing accurate facts, because often, even if I was right, no one listened to or believed what I said. Sometimes just staying quiet means less of a fight. This was my experience too. 2, to the latter. Say I was bringing up an issue that bothered me. My parents would instigate and darvo until I lost my cool and yelled something incredibly general, i.e., "you always do this," at which point the conversation would shift to how I shouldn't say always because if there's at least one time they haven't done it, then I'm spreading lies. This has led to a somewhat bizarre side effect where, as an adult and as a child, when I'm emotionally compromised, I become more articulate, not less. Losing my cool looks like a person shouting a doctoral thesis with cuss words peppered in, because unless every single one of my points is absolutely right, I feel like it's going to be thrown out entirely, or nitpicked instead of understanding the larger picture. Defensiveness can come out of a lot of situations, but this seems to hit the nail on the head. Story 12. Having an insecure attachment style, being out of touch with your feelings and having no one to teach you how to regulate them. I grew up just like this. I wasn't allowed to have an opinion because I was a child. I wasn't allowed to have privacy. I was never allowed to make choices without the approval of an adult, and standing up for myself was considered being disrespectful, and I was never allowed to talk back to any adults who were being disrespectful to me. I wasn't allowed to cry or be upset about anything. And now that I'm an adult, I have trouble regulating my emotions. If I'm sad about something, I feel like I want to kill myself even though it's something that isn't serious. If I'm upset about something, I blow it way out of proportion and it takes me a minute to calm down. I was never taught any life lessons or how to do simple tasks such as cleaning or cooking. I have a fear of doing a task and someone comes along and berates me for not knowing how to do something simple, which I was never taught how to do during childhood. It's embarrassing, in fact. Parents who treat their children how you and I were treated just make a person who can't think for themselves regarding decisions and always act on impulse. You just described my childhood in a nutshell. Opinions, feelings, and emotions were evil in the household, so to speak. When it comes to life lessons, my parents never really taught me responsibility because they didn't trust me, and no matter what I did, it was just never good enough and always ended with caustic remarks. My mother especially is a fastidious woman. Because of all that, according to my therapist, I'm terrified of responsibility because I grew up believing that I wasn't good enough. I'm in my 30s now and I still feel like this. My parents didn't change much either. That seems like absolute hell. Story 13. Trouble in their relationships, often seeking out unavailable partners. This one recently really pissed me off. I fell head over heels for a wonderful woman who actually chased after me and gave me just about all of her spare time. I knew I had this behavioral pattern of going after unavailable women and sabotaging myself if things did seem to go well, so I made a conscious effort to break that pattern with her because she felt so genuine and safe. Then after a while, she decided she wanted her ex back and discarded me like I was nothing to her. It's been over 7 months and I'm still not fully over this betrayal, and in my head, I keep fawning over her. It's pretty exhausting, but I did fully break off contact, so I guess I'm at least making progress compared to how things were before. Typical behavior for a narcissist. She love-bombed you at the beginning to get you hooked. Narcissists have a foolproof victim radar. How long had she been out of her last relationship? It matters. If the ex dumped her, she'd definitely want to go back and make sure she did the dumping in the future. What she said to you was unnecessary and cruel. Consider yourself lucky to have dodged years of pain. Now it is up to you to figure out what the red flags were so you don't repeat the process. Yep, that's basically love bombing. Story 14. They get discouraged easily and always need words of affirmation because they didn't receive any from their parents. If they make a small mistake, they can't help but keep thinking about it over and over again and feel like everyone in the world hates them. My love language is physical touch, but I feel like words of affirmation are a close second. I just want someone to tell me that they're proud of me, that I'm not a disappointment, but I'm not at a point yet where I can ask that of my friends, and trying to gather the courage to have that conversation with my mom triggers panic attacks. Or, on the contrary, getting upset at words of affirmation. When my first boyfriend told me he loved me, I became upset and cried because I didn't believe it was true. My family doesn't say I love you. However, I was actually right because he cheated on me soon after that. I'm the same. Whenever someone compliments me, I get really awkward and uncomfortable. Story 15. This is something I feel is largely untalked about in regard to victims of severe neglect, having difficulty with basic functioning skills like cleaning, hygiene, etc. I know because that happened to me. When you grow up amongst bugs and mold and rotting food and trash, wear dirty clothes all the time and go months without showering, sleeping in piss-soaked sheets that haven't been changed in months, even though you wet the bed every night, it really affects your developing brain. Skills implemented in childhood are crucial for the rest of your life, and when you never are taught them, or never taken care of, or don't even have access to do it yourself if you wanted to, then once you're an adult you have to teach yourself all this stuff you should have known by the time you were 12. You have to reparent yourself and create new brain pathways to replace the messed up ones ingrained in you. It's really hard in a way people can't understand unless you've experienced it. A good metaphor for it would be never being taught to speak or read or write, and having to teach yourself to talk and read and write as an adult. There are just fundamental skills that are not there, and it is so much harder to learn that stuff as an adult. I don't even mean so much as not knowing how to wash dishes, though that's it too. My first boss showed me how to properly wash dishes when I was 18. As much as I do the fundamental organization, planning, management, and execution skills that underlay everything you do in your life, it's not just washing dishes for me. Every step in washing dishes is its own task that requires its own management, organization, planning, and execution. So washing dishes is actually 20 different individual tasks, and all of those things are overwhelming. Going back to never learning how to talk, to read or write metaphors, it's like it's never just saying, reading, writing words for me. Every single moment of my mouth, every single letter requires as much effort for me as it does for someone else to just say the word. By the time I'm done with A, everyone else is done with the whole alphabet. It's hard to explain, and I'm not sure if I'm doing a good job at trying to. There's just a piece missing that everyone else has, but I don't. I struggle with so many of life's basic tasks, like cleaning, showering, changing the sheets, etc., for exactly these reasons. It's so much harder than just learning how to do these things. I know how now, but the simplest task in my own home, where I should feel safe, is overshadowed by feelings of dread and fear. Washing dishes. I wait for the screaming to start, even though I'm the only one here. Making the bed nice, I wait for the name calling to start, to have everything ripped up and thrown in a corner. I'm more comfortable sleeping in a nest of wadded up sheets and blankets on a bare mattress than a properly made bed, at 53 with over 20 years of therapy. Not only are tasks extremely difficult because I have to remember all the steps, but I didn't even have a clear idea of the finished picture growing up, and what's supposed to be normal is unfamiliar and uncomfortable. I don't even like being in houses because being in a home feels strange and unfamiliar. I relate to that so much. Doing basic stuff gives me feelings of dread and fear and panic. I now know the steps on how to wash dishes, but there is still a disconnect in actually being able to do those steps, and those emotions widen the gap. I remember going to a friend's house when I was a kid, and I was so surprised by how clean it was. I thought houses only looked like that on TV. I was amazed and thought it looked like a model home, even though there were dishes in the sink, mail on the counter, and normal everyday messes. I thought it was so unusual that there weren't bugs everywhere and cat poop on the floor and rotting food on the counters. I imagine a lot of people who grew up this way feel envy. Story 16. People pleaser, over-apologetic, says I'm sorry a lot even when it's not their fault. Difficulty making decisions, self-critical, low self-esteem, self-soothing behaviors such as humming, rockin' body, or feet. Shares a lot of ADHD-like symptoms and might even be diagnosed with ADHD. Panic attacks at random times and not knowing the reason for the sudden panic attack. Anxious around holidays or certain annual events. Struggle with being the center of attention. Sometimes little things will cause big emotional reactions. Difficulty asking for help. Obsessions over certain things like food, clothing, cleaning, wanting to do things for themselves and not including others, especially when it's normal to include others. Put themselves down. Over-explaining or providing too much information or detail when talking about why or what they did. Sleep disturbances such as night terrors, vivid nightmares, and sleepwalking. I suffer from all of this, right down to the ADHD diagnosis. I didn't realize I grew up in an abusive, neglectful household until about a year ago, and I'm 36. I always just thought I had mental health issues that magically had no cause. This is exactly me too. I'm 36 and suffered from all of the above. Just diagnosed with ADHD after seeing a psychiatrist 2 days ago. I feel validated, but also let down by my mom, who was always screaming at me about how she didn't understand me as a child. I could go on about that, but I'm saving it for my therapist. On another note, I quit alcohol 425 days ago, and my life has significantly changed for the better. The alcohol was something I used to cope with my feelings of being different for 19 years. I can't begin to describe how becoming alcohol-free has liberated my soul. Glad to be on this journey and finding so many things about who I am and what I'm truly capable of. Thanks for listening. It's hard to grasp just how much ADHD can take over your life. Story 17. Compulsive lying. For some people, if they weren't safe as a child to trust the adults in their life with their feelings, they can develop a sense of safety in lying. It helps them to feel like their personal inner truth is protected because nobody can invalidate it if they don't know about it. Compulsive lying is such an underrated one that many people miss. It also stems from people who desperately crave sympathy and attention that they never got from having a horrid home life. It's a very hated trait, but the source is usually very sad. You can say that you won't get mad when I tell the truth. If, however, you show me the reaction is the same no matter what I do, lying becomes a form of self-preservation, and it takes years to break that pattern when you realize that's not how other people will treat you. Compulsive lying is definitely a big one, especially about things that seem weird or things that don't matter. It's likely directly tied to neglect or trauma. Story 18. You go to therapy for something unrelated, share a normal story, and the therapist is like, "What?" Alternately, tell anyone else your childhood stories and they go, "What?" So many of us tell these absolutely horrific stories of neglect and abandonment, and we laugh because if we don't see it as something humorous, it might break us. Over time, the sharp edges of trauma get softened, and we honestly do believe this is just a funny story. I'm still caught by the occasional memory where I'm like, wait, that's not funny, that was actually really messed up. Whenever I tell my therapist something messed up and her face goes from a careful poker face to a slight frowny face, I feel weirdly pleased. Like that, I am getting a good grade in therapy, something that is both normal to want and possible to achieve tweet. It's never pleasant when a therapist calls you out. Story 19. Feeling weirded out by someone being genuinely nice to you because you're that used to all the abuse you endured growing up. You wholeheartedly believe that they're only being nice because they're obligated to, just like people from your past did to you. For me, I'm weirded out by someone being nice because in the past, people were only nice to me to gain my trust so that they could hurt me. I endured a lot of childhood bullying. If it happens at home, it's abuse. If it happens as an adult, it's assault. If it happens at school, it's just part of growing up and your fault for letting it happen. I'm really struggling with this one as an adult. We have neighborly neighbors who just bring gifts or help us out with yard work, and I always fight this feeling that they've got ulterior motives, are going to turn it around on us, or are only doing it because they want to cash in, or they're only being nice so that they can later take advantage of you. Story 20. Don't do basic maintenance on themselves or wait until they deserve to have something basic, like eating something they like or going to a movie. Sometimes I take a long shower or buy perfume. Other times it's things like sleeping in. They won't buy new clothes or the old ones are ripped or falling apart. Things people don't think about doing that's part of your day-to-day. Someone neglected may have gotten that as a messed up reward system from their parents. Exactly right. I was made to feel like a burden for asking for basic necessities. A lot of guilt tripping, but when they felt guilty, I was often given things that they later would hold over my head and make me feel guilty for accepting. I would eventually reject some things and just never ask for anything. However, as an adult, I will ask for money and get insulted for it because I'm struggling and I would be criticized anyway. I recently started going to physical therapy, something I was terrified of. I told myself I'd do something nice as a little treat after every appointment. I gave up after like my second appointment because I could never think of anything nice to do for myself. Or if I did think of something, I'd immediately shoot it down. That's too expensive. That's a waste of money. What would I even do with that? I don't need another blank. I have plenty. I'm almost 40, and even as recently as 5 years ago, I had to return a really nice camping tent that I found for a really good deal. It wasn't just one person who told me that I didn't need a tent. My father and ex both told me this. I get chewed out by partners and family for needing new clothes, shoes, and all my basics. I literally buy new clothes clothes or shoes when I can no longer comfortably wear what I have, or I've literally run out of that article of clothing. I have even twisted my reasoning as to, I don't need nice things, when in reality I yearn for nice things. You never really need 90% of the things that you buy. That doesn't mean you shouldn't buy those things. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story that you would like to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and don't forget to subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.